Well, when it comes to the early season, moving into the season, and if you're actually practicing proper deer management, then if you have too many deer, you shoot some does. If you don't have enough deer, you don't shoot some does. It's pretty easy. Just because the DNR gives you, or your state game agency gives you Dole permits, doesn't mean you need to use them. They're tools in the tool bucket. We as property owners have to decide, should we use those tools or not? But if you're going to shoot some does this year, so I'm not saying you should shoot a doe on every property, you should not. I talk to clients all the time where I advise them, hey, you're in a herd building mode, you just bought this property, you're adding food plots, you're changing the habitat, you're inviting deer to your land. You might be shooting does 2 or 3 years from now, but don't shoot them right now. And I've even had clients that have gone against that, shot does, and then wondered where the deer were the next year. Shoot 5 on opening day and you're in a wooded area and they're not there the next year. Not a good idea. So first you need to determine if you need to shoot does or not, and you're generally looking at, if you have a 40-acre parcel, you have 7 acres of food plots, you're in an ag area, not uncommon to have 15 to 18 does and fawns out on those food plots. So once you start hitting 25, 30, you probably need to take 5 or 6 or 7. 1 or 2 is not going to help. And of course, if you have a lot more than that, then you're taking a lot more. If you have 5 deer on 40 acres and you have 7 acres of food plots, then you need to build your herd. So again, going back, you need to figure some of this stuff out. But as it relates to the best time to shoot those does and to actually harvest them, it's a little bit different for me. I look at mature bucks. I can shoot a doe almost every time that we go out in the woods on different properties. It doesn't mean we're overrun by does. It means that does think herd mentality. They move and think and act as a group. They go from point A to point B, a very short distance, every single day, if you've actually kept the hunting pressure away and giving them the variables of food and cover to do so that's consistent throughout the entire hunting season. Pretty easy to get on them. So I look at that doe crop as like a, not exactly, but it's like a tree full of apples. You groomed, you created, you built, the tree grew, you planted it, and then you harvest them. And I look at does, you're harvesting them, you're going out and hunt because it's not much hunting. Hunting to me requires a lot more patience, a lot more skill level, a lot higher skill level. And that to me is that mature buck, and that's what keeps me going over and over again. I love to hunt does, but you have to do it at the right time. You have to do when it's appropriate. And I almost refer to does as harvest and mature bucks as shooting or killing. There is a difference between the two. Does, 3 best ways to shoot a doe, 3 best times, I should say, to shoot a doe. And I look at these times, they're going to have the least impact on your property, and you're going to get the most bang for your efforts for shooting those does, because you do not want to be shooting mature does. It used to be the old thought, and I hear people online, they'd say, oh, every mature doe I see, I shoot because I need to lure. Oh my goodness, that was a terrible strategy. I'd plead with people, don't do that. You're ruining your hunt, because every time you pull the trigger, every time you release an arrow, every time you shoot a doe and it runs into some bedding area and you have to get it out, then you're disturbing your property. And if you have 20, 30, 40, 80 acres, 100 acres, whatever it is, you can't afford to do that all season long, or pretty soon, within a couple weeks, you don't have any deer on your property. You can't manage anything, you can't hunt anything. First great time to shoot a doe is during the early season. We've had a lot of great luck over a certain crabapple tree we like to hunt, or food plots that are off to the side. We know we can shoot a doe, get in and out quickly. Most of the time with a bow, the youth season, like in Michigan, late September, outstanding time to take a kid out and have them shoot a doe. And no, I don't believe they should be shooting mature bucks at that time, because if you're taking a kid out that's 8, 10, 12 years old for the first time and hunting does, if they can't get excited about shooting a doe at that time, they shouldn't be in the woods. And I know that's pretty black and white and a very strong opinion, but I know how excited I was, my kids were, my wife, when they were shooting those first deer in their does. And hey, if that kid can't get excited, a new hunter shooting a doe, really, should they be in the woods? And so a great time to shoot a doe though, end of September, early October, does pointed at the truck, downhill, whatever it might be. You're not near that sacred bedding area that you're expecting to collect mature bucks into and hold bucks throughout the season. Great time to shoot a doe in the early season. And you could say things like, you're making sure that you don't take more food away from the herd because you're shooting the doe at this time. You're improving the sex ratios for the rut and you have a stronger rut. Whether it's early or late doesn't matter. Even if you shoot them late, then you're still improving the rut for the next year. So it just is 9 months longer, or 8 months later, or 10 months, whatever it is. It's the same. It doesn't matter the timing. Don't think of that. People will say, oh, you're improving your rut, or you're not taking food. Don't listen to that, because you're improving the doe herd for the next year if you shoot them late. You're improving them for this year if you shoot them early. Early is a great time. Second time, and I'm gonna tell you about the worst time to shoot does coming up here at the end. But the second time is when you already have a buck on the ground. So you're out there hunting. It's October 26th. You shoot a real nice buck. You have to go in the property to get that buck anyway, some way, however you get him out, dragging him out, driving in the vehicle, truck. I like to go get him after dark and leave the machine running, whatever I'm using. But when you already have a buck on the ground, turn your weapon to the nearest doe, and then turn your weapon to the next nearest doe. Great time to shoot bulk does when you already have a buck on the ground. Doesn't matter if it's gun season, bow season, any time of the season. When you're already going into the woods, turn the weapon and shoot the nearest doe as possible to try to meet your objectives if you need to shoot does in the first place. And lastly, the late season. We are blessed in Wisconsin with a 4-day doe season that is at the end of muzzleloader and gun, the 19-day muzzleloader gun season. And it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have racked up 9 does in one day on one property, just 2 of us, in just a few hours of hunting, because we allowed those does to hit our food plots and define those daily movements every single day, getting back to does are more harvesting than hunting. We just went in there and we were able to harvest, shoot, hunt, whatever you want to call it. I don't like getting personal, who cares which way you call it, but the bottom line is easy to take out large groups of does in a single day, late season, and having almost zero impact on your land a week later, 2 weeks later. And we get a lot of our mature buck pictures the end of December, going in through January and into February, even though we participate in that doe hunt every single year, even up to the tune of shooting 9 does in one day. And I can say there were a couple of mishaps that day. We should have had more. So those are 3 great times: early, late, and when you already have one on the ground. Great times all to hunt. Don't think about, I'm helping the herd more if I shoot them early or shooting them late. It's all the same, guys. You're helping the herd for the following year if you shoot them late, helping him for this year and the following year if you shoot them early. Who cares? It's just you're reducing them at a time where you're not stressing out your deer herd, you're not pushing bucks off the property, you're not destroying all your efforts because you're going in and shooting a doe every time it comes by. Terrible, terrible strategy. It was back in the day. It was 10 years ago, it was 5 years ago, and it's terrible right now, and it's terrible in the future too. Now I'm gonna talk about the worst time to shoot a doe is when you don't have a buck on the ground and it's opening day of gun season. And I have a chart that Dylan's probably gonna show you here, and I talk about early and late in the season. Great times to shoot does, and then of course, any time during the season when you actually have a buck on the ground. But when you get into the heart of the season, where the day where there is the most hunting pressure in any state is opening day of gun season. The worst thing you could do is put 3 does on the ground, 5 does on the ground, and then you're disturbing the entire property by getting those does out. The number one time for your hunting land to be secure throughout the entire season is opening day of gun season. The last thing you need to do is shoot a bunch of does. Now, if that buck comes by the year after, you're shooting bucks, whatever kind you're shooting, then again, just turn your rifle, turn your weapon towards the nearest doe and have fun. That's what hunting is all about. But if you have the choice, the most secure time all hunting season long is opening day of gun. Absolute worst time to shoot does. And if you shoot a bunch of does then, and you talk about, well, that I said, go out and shoot some does and you shot a bunch on opening day and you destroyed your property, I don't want to hear about it. As far as, I hurt the property by shooting does. I'm not saying don't shoot opening does at all, or I'm not saying don't shoot opening day does. I'm saying shoot them if you have a buck on the ground. If not, let your property set. Be that 1 20, 30 acre parcel in the area where people aren't shooting does on opening day and tramping all around the woods and going and having to retrieve those does. Let your property settle down, shoot a nice buck or 2 if you can. Drive after dark, go get your deer out of the woods when most people are trying to drag them out during the day. And let the best time that you shoot a doe all season long be the times where they stress out the deer herd on your land the least. Think about that. It's not about you're going to improve the health of the herd this time or that time. Don't even think about that kind of stuff. Because if you need to shoot does, you need to shoot does. Think about more of a timing issue. And of course, that's not every day of the season that you shoot at does or you target does. Think about the best timing that it relates to when you could shoot does. And guess what? When you target does a very low amount of time of the entire season, let's say 4 or 5 days out of a 110-day season, then what you'll find is that you can grow the best deer herds in the area. You can manage your does if you need to during the least invasive times of the entire season. You'll be rewarded with the best QDM herd, the best hunt, and the best opportunity to actually hunt and strategize over those wily old bucks that are some of the most sacred ghost-like deer in the woods. And you can do that with effective doe timing this year. Those are 3 of the best times to actually go hunt does this season. I hope you take advantage of them if you need to. And again, just because you have doe tags doesn't mean that you need to use them. Dylan actually wrote a great article a couple years back, but doe tags are a tool. Just because you have them in your toolbox doesn't mean that you need to use them this year. And hey, you might need to call some friends, neighbors, maybe some fathers and sons, and even get some more doe tags if you're overrun. And there's a lot of other strategies as it relates to having too many does on your land. But again, this year, those are the 3 best times. Take advantage of them this year, and I think you'll find that your herd and hunting efforts are better off for it, being very strategic and applying as little stress to your land as possible this season.